What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're jumping into my Modern Warfare top 5 best guns for you guys to be able to use. These are all my setups I like to run here. Drop my nukes, my 100 pluses, all that sort of good stuff. There's some real broken things in here and some setups I've really fine-tuned to give you guys the best possible outcome so you can really dominate multiplayer. If you guys haven't enjoyed today's video, be sure to do me a favor, drop it a like and subscribe, the notifications turned on so you not miss out on any of my future content. All right, so for our first gun here today, we're gonna be taking a look at something that I think is personally really broken here still in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer, and that's gonna be the SPR208. This thing is actually frankly pretty ridiculous, but before we actually get into all those attachments and everything, the tunings for them, I'll just show you guys my general basic here for everything else. Pretty much the tactical is always a stim shot, delete those always a semtex, and my perk package here for every single one of my setups goes as double time, scavenger, fast hands, and quick fix, along with my munitions box as my field upgrade. You guys could probably add something else in here like dead silence, but otherwise I pretty much only go for the munitions box. So hopping in here to the SPR208, this is a very hybridized or pretty much like a really fast style build. I pretty much like to run around this like a super aggressive sniper, pretty much like almost like a shotgun almost with a ton of range is what I like to run around with this thing as. So I just run around it super quick. I can drop like some MGBs with this. I mean, it is pretty freaking overpowered. So let's actually get into all these attachments now. I got my face cam here covering a couple of them, but let's get into everything. So first attachment is going to be the carbon barrel. It's going to be that ADS speed, hip recoil control, and of course movement speed. I was a little worried when I initially selected this that I was going to lose that damage range, but I was still getting those one shots at extremely long distances. It's like, okay, this will be entirely okay if I do happen to choose that. The tune on this thing here is actually going to be a little bit more for that recoil steadiness here at a plus 0.24, and then I maxed it out for damage range, as you can max out some of these guns, some of these attachments, and you'll be okay, but I really wanted to make sure I got as much damage range out of this as possible to keep that one hit kill potential, considering I lost a little bit of damage range here on the gun. Next up for our other attachments going to be the FSS OLE-V laser, aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and of course sprint to fire speed. This is just a great attachment I like to run on a variety of my different guns, so I'd highly recommend for you guys to check this thing out, as this is really great. And of course there's no tuning for it. After that, we're gonna go straight to the stock here, which is actually going to be covered by my face cam. I'm gonna run the ZRL T70 pad extension. This is gonna give that crouch movement speed, sprint speed, and aim down sight speed. Don't really care too much about that crouch movement speed, but the other two pros I really do like. And of course the recoil control con's not much of a con at all, considering this is a bolt action and you're most likely gonna zoom in or something like that, or unscope, or un-ADS between shots. That's more or less what you should be doing, or how at least I end up using it. The tune on this thing here is going to be a 3.10, a negative 3.10, and then it's going to be maxed out for aiming idle stability, just to really make sure that this thing is actually stable and easy to use so you can actually hit your shots. The iron sights are pretty easy to be able to use. Next up, in the comb section, run the aim assist 406, sprint to fire speed, aim down sight speed. Overall, just a great attachment. I also don't really have any of these other ones in here, but to be honest, I really wouldn't use them because they're not mobility based. So this is pretty much the only one you should really care about, considering this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this thing super fast and agile. The tune on this here is going to be a negative 0.19 there and a negative 0.08. Just got to give it a little bit of that ADS speed. Some of these attachments you can max out, and others you have to very minorly touch in order to get so much benefit out of it, and you don't want to go too far, otherwise you really start messing this thing up. But last attachment here is going to be the FSS ST87 bolt, just to help with that rechambering speed. It's going to help, of course, because it is bolt action. You got to rechamber the next shot in the magazine. It is a magazine reloaded gun. Thankfully it's not like the Car 98 where it's like you have to put every shot in there single. You can actually get a magazine reload, which is pretty solid, and I do believe the 5-round mag is perfectly fine. If you're on that 10-round mag, it is going to slow you down too much, but overall, this is my full build here, and I really enjoy using the SPR. Next up, a gun that I personally really like right now, that's going to be the TAC-56. This gun I made a few different setups on. I've done some really super long range ones. I've done some pretty short close range ones. This is a bit of a hybrid. You're going to get some best of both worlds in terms you got some of that range. You also got a lot of mobility, which is pretty awesome. So I definitely say this is one of my favorite setups right now, and also it's super easy to be able to use, and it's very early level unlocks for a majority of these things, so you guys should be really enjoying this setup. All right, so as far as getting into the setup here, we of course are not going to be running like a barrel on this thing, which is something I don't normally do, but more recently I switched it up and it's actually worked out quite nicely. But for our first attachment here, we're running the Harbinger D20. This can give that sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness. Overall, a really great attachment to be able to run. I really wanted something that's going to increase the damage range and everything like that, just because I don't have a barrel on there to really kind of help with that. So I really wanted to take a silencer instead of something like an FTAC Castle Comp, which would only help out with the recoil. This will definitely help out with the recoil and also bolster my damage range and bullet velocity, which is what I was really looking for. The tune on this thing here is going to be a negative 1.04 and then a negative 0.35 there on the bottom. Pretty standard, pretty simple tune. Don't gotta max this one out. I've only maxed out very few tunes here on this game ever since I figured out that I was actually doing it wrong the first time. After that, we're gonna go down here to the underbarrel. We're gonna throw on the FTAC Ripper 56. Almost didn't know what this thing was called. But the aiming idle stability increase, hipfire accuracy increase, and of course recoil stabilization. This is one of my favorite grips here to be able to run on a large majority of my assault rifles. Even some of the SMGs, when you have the option for the Ripper 56, or I think it's like the Phase 3, it's pretty much like the same thing, but just a bit of a different name. A lot of attachments do very similar things with different names or look slightly different, but they do a lot of the same stuff. The tune on this thing here is going to be negative 0.36 there and a plus 0.19 there on the bottom. Overall, great way to be able to tune this. Just wanted to make sure I stabilized the gun out, and of course made sure that now I was getting a little bit more ADS, as this is like a hybridized style, build. I like being aggressive, and this is a very aggressive build for the TAC. After that, we're gonna go over here to my rear grip, and that's gonna be the demo clean shot for sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. This is something I really like running here on a large majority of my guns. If I can run something in a rear grip section that's gonna give me more sprint to fire and ADS on an assault rifle, I will definitely do that. And this is no exception. The tune on this here is gonna be negative 0.35 there and a negative 0.22 on the bottom. Above that, what's actually covered by the face cam is going to be the TV X-Line Pro. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I only have the stock here just because I have the frontal impact variant of the SCAR you get from playing the beta. I call it the SCAR, but the TAC 56 from playing the beta. So otherwise, if you don't happen to have this, what I'd recommend is from the TV Cardinal stock instead. You're not going to get this exact same benefits, but more or less you're still going to get some great mobility out of the thing. I just recommend the X-Line Pro since I have it with the variant. So if you have that variant, kudos to you, it's awesome. But otherwise, you should be entirely okay switching it out for like the Cardinal stock. The tune on this thing here, though, is going to be a negative 2.06 and then a negative 1.32 there on the bottom. And for our last attachment, we have the Cronin Mini Pro. So this is going to be the blue dot, red dot sight. I normally speaking really enjoy the TAC 56 sights, but I was trying to use something that wasn't going to be a magazine, wasn't going to be a barrel. And I was like, if I want to make this thing real fast, I like to maybe be able to see a little bit better. So I kind of just decided to choose a red dot sight, and it worked out flawlessly. So the Cronin Mini Pro, it's a blue dot, red dot. Just got to level up the Expedite shotgun to about level 7 in order to be able to get this thing, and it's going to work out great. And then the tune on this thing here is going to be maxed out for that aim down sight speed and also maxed out for that far distance, because I want to push that sight as far away from me on my screen as possible. It's not going to be too little or nothing like that, but I'd highly recommend you always push the sight far away here. These for multiplayer builds. But this is my full thing here, and now let's move on to our next gun. All right, so for our next gun here, a gun that I actually just made recently a video on, that's going to be the mini back or the mini bach, whatever you want to call this thing. I call it the mini back, aka the PP19 Bison here, or the Bison, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this is just a great SMG. It's got a huge magazine of like 64 round stock, so of course that is just super awesome when you're trying to rush around. It's been a great gun to run on shipment specifically because of that massive magazine size. So you have a lot of great options in here for attachments, and I've crafted up a build that's going to be incredibly lethal that I think you guys are really going to love. So hop into this here. These are going to be some of my base attachments on this thing. This is just a really fun build. It's something I've super enjoyed using. It's incredibly lethal. Kind of surprise you a little bit when you use it, but let's get into it here. So of course our first attachment is going to be the X10R40. And that's just going to give us that sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness. A great addition on this gun. I mean, I just think it does wonders. I love running the X10 on a lot of my SMGs. The tune on this thing here is going to be a negative 0.99 there and a negative 0.32 on the bottom. A great way to be able to tune this to get, of course, more ADS and aiming idle stability while still not like chalking the rest of the attachment. After that, we're going to go up into the barrel section and run the back -9 279mm barrel. This is the only barrel in here that you can unlock, so this is going to give you that increase to damage range, hipfire accuracy, and of course bullet velocity, which are good things here to be able to have on this gun. Of course, it will slow you down here a little bit, but don't really worry about that because this gun is going to be unbelievably effective. And the tune on this thing here is going to be maxed out for your recoil steadiness and a negative 0.19 there on the bottom to give you a little bit more aim down sight speed. Like I said, you don't max out a lot of these things. You can max out some and be okay. After that, though, the laser, this should look kind of familiar. The FSS OLE-V laser, you guys kind of know what it does already. Ain't gotta explain it too much. But overall, a great attachment to run on a variety of different guns. After that, we're going to go to the stock section here, which is covered by the face cam. We're in the Marquise R7 stock for that crouch movement speed, sprint speed, and of course, ADS speed. This is a stock that I really enjoy running. I've ran the Otrizat stock here. I've also tried the stockless. I do believe the stockless, if you're running something like shipment, may work out very nicely, considering that's going to give you super max mobility, but also you're going to have to deal with some recoil. So between the Otrizat and the Marquis R7, you really can't go too wrong, but I've been running the Marquis R7. This has worked out really well. The tune on this thing here is being maxed out for ADS speed and also maxed out for aim walking speed. For our final attachment though, rear grip section here, true tack grip, sprint to fire, and ADS. Like I said, I like to run something that's going to max out my mobility. We already have something that kind of slows us down a little bit with that silencer and of course the barrel, but it's making us more effective at range, extending our damage range. So this is going to be to speed us up here since we slowed us down a little bit. And then the tune on this is going to be a negative 0.81 and also maxed out there on the bottom. So that's gonna be that's my full build here for the Minimac. Try it out, it is incredible. Next up, I want to take a look at another SMG that I personally think doesn't get enough love in the game, and that's the PDSW, aka the P90. This thing is a really solid SMG as long as you build it the right way. It's got a lot of attachments on there that can be a little bit confusing, but when you build this thing out here properly, you're gonna have a really solid gun that's able to take people out very efficiently, very quickly, and it's just going to be an overall great weapon to be able to use. I've dropped some pretty nice gameplays here with it and gotten some pretty nice streaks, so let's hop into the build for it. All right, so we're gonna hop into this here. You guys can see some of my base attachments, but of course we'll go over everything and all the tunes. Let's actually get into the barrel here first, because this is a pretty cool one. So the 18.75 Cloak 90, this is going to give you an integral suppressor, so that's why we're not running anything on the end of the gun. It increases, of course, your sound suppression, bullet velocity, recoil control, and damage range. So it's a great attachment. It gives you the benefits of a barrel and also kind of a silencer in one, which is pretty sick. It does kind of slow you down a little bit, but overall I like having those nice little 2-for-1 attachments, especially if they're actually good, and this is one of those times where you can kind of take advantage of that. After that, we're going to go in here to the laser section to speed this thing up. The VLK Laser 7MW, aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and sprint to fire speed. Really can't complain too much about that. This is just a great one. It's pretty much like the other laser we've been running, the FSS OLE. This is just pretty much like another version of that. Like I said, there's a lot of guns or a lot of attachments in here that have like a different name but do the same thing, so this is going to be that. After that, we're going to go into the optics section and we're going to go through on the Cronin Mini Pro, and of course, like I said, this is the blue dot red dot sight, but this actually does have a pretty cool feature down below here. Before we get into the tune for that, you guys can actually go onto one of the rails and you could use one of these down here, and I have used them and they're pretty good, but I did want to be able to have a red dot sight instead of a rail. I tried out one of the rails, I ran it for a while, but then I decided I want to go back to a red dot sight. But let's actually into the tune for it here, which is maxed out for aim down sight speed and of course for that far distance. Got to push that sight away from us. Helps your visual recoil as well, along with just making sure you see a lot around you, which is a good thing. After that, we're gonna go in here to the comb section. We're on the TV Tacom, whatever you want to call this thing. Pretty much sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. Great attachment. This is pretty much like a category that's specific to the P90 because it doesn't really have some of the other categories, but sprint to fire ADS, something that we really need on SMGs. The tune on this thing here is going to be a plus 0.16 and negative 0.14 there, so definitely go ahead and try that out. And then for our final attachment here on this gun, we're in the Bruin Q900 grip, sprint to fire and ADS here once again, and then the tune on this thing here is going to be a negative 0.71 and a negative 0.30. So that's going to be that is my full tune and build here on the P90, aka the PDSW. And now for our final gun here within this top 5, we're going to be taking a look at the Kastov 74U. This is kind of like an AR. Now realistically, everyone uses it as an SMG. It's not really an AR. Don't know why it's in that category. They could have just called this thing the AK-74U if they really felt like it, but anyways, this is an incredible assault rifle that you guys should be using. Very highly mobile, it hits really hard. It's also incredibly easy to be able to control, so let's get into this build. All right, so this is going to be my build here on this thing for these base attachments. You guys can be able to see what's all going on in here, but now let's get into these and kind of explain them a little bit. For this specific gun, we're on the FTAC Castle comp here, not a regular silencer. I just wanted to be able to increase my horizontal and vertical recoil control. I didn't feel like I needed to do much else in terms of increasing the range. I know this thing did technically get a bit of a nerf in its range, but I really don't see it all that much. I don't feel like it affecting me. So I was running the FTAC Castle comp. comp, and I found it to be super good. I mean, I just dropped an MGB here with this exact build just like a day or two ago, and it worked out really well. The tune on this thing here is going to be a negative 0.52 on the left and then a plus 0.28 there on the bottom. So just got to help with that recoil control, as this thing does like to bounce around a little bit while also still making this faster. A great way to tune this attachment. Next up, we're going to go into the barrel section. We're on the short tack 330 millimeter barrel. This is going to give you that increase in recoil control, hip recoil control, and bullet velocity. I've ran this gun here without a barrel, and I do believe that it is more effective to run this thing with the barrel. Even though it says you get a negative decrease to your damage range, I still do believe it is more beneficial to run this with a barrel as opposed to without. So definitely trust me on this one and try it out. The tune on this thing here is going to be a plus 0.15 there on the left and a plus 0.34 there on the bottom. Next up, we're going to go to the underbarrel section. We're going to throw on the phase 3 grip. Like I said, pretty much the FTAC gripper 56, phase 3 grip, same thing, different name, but same attachment. So aiming idle stability, hip fire accuracy, recoil stabilization, great things here to be able to have on this gun. I definitely recommend it. And then of course the tune is going to be negative 0.57 there for that, and a plus 0.22 there on the bottom. Now let's move over into our rear grip section here for our second to last attachment, and that's going to be the True Tack grip for sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. Just got to be able to speed this thing up here, considering we pretty much all run around with it like an SMG, not an AR. And so the tune is going to be a negative 0.74 and a negative 0.35. And then for our final attachment here, we're on the tried and true O-Trees stock. Aim locking speed and sprint speed, just to kind of speed you up a little bit. You guys could definitely try out the Marquee R7 or the stockless, but like I said, for like the mini bag, since it has the same options, the stockless is really going to mess your recoil control. Don't really recommend it on this thing. The Marquee R7 could be a nice thing to be able to try, but the O-Trees has worked out really well for me in specific with this build, so I've been sticking with it. And the tune on this thing here is going to be a negative 2.19 and then a plus 1.78 on the bottom. So this has been my full build here on this thing. Definitely go try it out. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, give it a like, subscribe, and be sure to check out one of these other videos here on screen. Really appreciate that. Just run out, triple cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.